Hello, everybody. This is Pam Wycliffe, and this is Lunch with the League for July of 2025. And I have a few things that I need to say before our speaker speaks. One is that we, as the League, never support or oppose a political party or a candidate. We're nonpartisan, a political organization encouraging informed and active participation in government. We have two roles, really. One is that for voter services and citizen education, we present unbiased information about elections, the voting process, and issues. And we, as being nonpartisan, but after we do a study, if we find something that we would like to study, we use our positions to advocate for or against particular policies or that are according to public interest. Wait, I gotta let somebody in here. Can't find him. Okay, I'll let him in a minute. So because of that, comments and opinions that people might make today are not necessarily those of the League. We will be here from now till 1. Our general format, and I kind of mentioned it to you, Judge Frankel, but for you to speak the first half hour-ish, and then we'll have questions and answers afterwards. And if folks can please mute themselves, and if you would put your questions and comments in the chat, we will then read them after when it comes time for the Q&A. And we'll do it that way. If you want more information about the League of Women Voters and their positions, you can go to www.lwvsouthbend.org. And when you get there, it has a whole bunch of information there, as well as links to the state League of Women Voters and also to the National League of Women Voters and what they're advocating as well. And given that, I would like to introduce our speaker, who is the United States Magistrate Judge Scott Frankel. And he was sworn into office on August 13th, 2024. Graduated from Ohio State University College of Law with honors in '85, where he served as editor-in-chief in the Ohio State Law Journal. After law school, Judge Frankel clerked for United States District Judge David Porter in the Southern District of Ohio. He began his legal career as an associate in Mayer Brown, a prominent international law firm based in Chicago. He later transitioned to public service, joining Cook County Public Defender's Office, where he gained extensive courtroom experience handling both misdemeanors and felonies. And I'm anxious to hear about that. After his tenure as a public defender, he co-founded the law firm Frankel & Co. Firm focused on civil and criminal litigation, including civil rights cases and serious felony matters in both federal and state courts at the trial and appellate level. 2018, Judge Frankel joined the South Bend office of the Federal Community Defender, continuing his commitment to public defense until his appointment to the bench. And that's where we are today.
That's where we are today.
And so, Judge Frankel, it's the floor or the computer is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I first want to thank the League of Women Voters for the work that you do to help us present information to the public so the public can make informed decisions in our democracy, which is crucial. And I also want to thank you for having me here today. So United States Magistrate Judges are integral to the federal judiciary, handling and resolving a wide range of matters. Since magistrate judges are appointed by district judges and not the President of the United States, our jurisdiction in some cases is limited compared to the jurisdiction of the district judge. but we are a busy and necessary component of the federal court system, which couldn't operate without our work and what we do. Now, the two main questions that I hear all the time about my job as magistrate judge are, how did you get to be a judge? And what kind of judge are you anyway? There's so many different kinds of judges, and one of the problems that the public has is understanding the different roles of judges. And magistrate judges are not, our docket is smaller than the state court. And so I would say most people never have any contact with the magistrate judge, and so don't really know what we do. I'm going to try to answer both of those questions. Okay, so what I'm going to do is talk about my background, which will explain how I got to where I am, the process for selecting a magistrate judge, the responsibilities of the magistrate judge, and I'm going to briefly, if there's time, touch on the role of courts in the federal system of government and take questions. So, as has already been mentioned, I went to Ohio State Law School. I graduated with honors, and I was editor-in-chief of the Law Journal. And so that set me up, those credentials set me up to do a federal clerkship, which I did in Cincinnati for 2 years with Judge David Porter. And Judge Porter was an interesting character. He had been a state court judge for a long time, and he was a titan in civil rights matters, coming to the federal court in Cincinnati, and he had made a lot of big decisions about overcrowding at the jail and desegregation of the fire department and police department. So he was quite an interesting person to work for. After the clerkship, I went to Mayor Brown and Platt, and I was there for a couple of years and realized that that wasn't the uh, career path that I wanted to be on, much to the dismay of my parents who thought everything was settled. And I was going to go on a certain trajectory. But instead, of course, being the person that I am, I went to the Cook County Public Defender's Office, which in hindsight was a bit of a crazy move and involved like a 90% pay cut. But I loved it. I loved the public defender's office. I got into court right away. I was very quickly doing trials and misdemeanors and felonies. And as one of my supervisors told me at the time, he said, Chicago, of course, is the creme de la crime. And that turned out to be absolutely true. You cannot even begin to imagine the kinds of things that happen in that big city or anywhere, really, I've come to realize. Most of the time, uh, the violence is just below the surface. It's not even covered by the newspapers. People don't know what's going on, even really right around the corner. But it's all there in that courthouse. And the courthouse in Chicago is at 26 in California, and it's really something that everybody should see at one time in their life, I think, because you see the whole throng of human society going into that front door. You have the police officers, the public defenders, the prosecutors, the private attorneys with their fancy suits. It just goes on and on and on, and everybody has to funnel through the same doorway and rub shoulders and then go up to the courtrooms where the real work happens. So I got a lot of experience doing violent crimes, and I'll take some questions about that later. But I did, of course, everything from armed robberies to murders and lots of jury trials. And it was just a really wonderful, if an experience like that can be wonderful, it was a good learning experience for me, which I take with me forever. And then I started the law firm Frankel and Cohn with my friend he was doing employment litigation at University of Chicago, and we thought we could combine forces and have a civil and criminal law firm. On the civil side, we did civil rights cases, employment discrimination cases, some union stuff that we actually litigated, including requests for injunctions or temporary restraining orders. And some of the most interesting things were class action cases as plaintiffs in consumer class actions. And so I did, this is one of the, I think, important points to make, that I had all this civil experience, which was unusual because I was also building a criminal practice. And this made me a good candidate to be a federal magistrate, having experience on both sides of the aisle. In criminal, I just prided myself on being the person who knew how to handle every kind of case, from traffic court all the way up to I was doing death penalty cases. So if you called me and you had a neighbor who needed a lawyer at traffic court and I was able to go, I would go for you. And I knew where traffic court was. And a lot of the lawyers who were also doing death penalty work couldn't tell you how to get to traffic court or what to do once you got there. But I did DUIs and speeding tickets and everything, but all the way up to capital cases where we were literally fighting for our client's life, which was interesting. I also, in federal court, did a lot of appointed cases, which resulted in me doing these crazy, huge gang cases. You don't see that much in South Bend, sometimes in Hammond, where you have 15, 20 defendants arrested all at once, and they're charged with a RICO conspiracy. That's a racketeering law. And there's also an element of that, of violence in furtherance of racketeering. If there's a murder, that can also carry the death penalty in federal court. And I did a couple of those along the way. The death penalty cases are collaborative. It's a team effort, including multiple lawyers, social workers, therapists, investigators. And so I really gained a lot of experience working with other people in a collaborative way towards this outcome we were looking for, which was basically a no death outcome for our client. Um, so that brings me to all the way up to 2018 when I joined the Federal Community Defender here in South Bend. I had been in practice with my law partner for about 28 years, and it was a busy and exciting 28 years. I barely had time to breathe. And I raised a couple kids. My kids are now in their 20s, 25 and 28. And I just felt that I wanted to go back into the public sector, as Pam alluded to, and be a public defender again. And so I saw that there was an opening for the federal public defender of the Northern District of Indiana, South Bend Division. And that office is right across the street. I can see it out my window here. And there are two lawyers in there, a secretary and an investigator. It was like being in private practice all over again, except without having to worry about hustling to all the different courtrooms in Chicago, which takes a physical toll, if nothing else. And the rent is paid by someone else. So all of that, it was a good transition at my stage of the career. And quite frankly, I wasn't sure if I was ever going to do anything else but work in that office. And when I got to this federal defender's office, the volume, the intensity at first seemed a lot less than what I was used to. I was ready, I'm prepared and can handle a seriously intense law practice, and I was used to that for decades, basically. But then it struck me like a light bulb that what I could contribute in this office was just getting to know the clients in a way that I wasn't able to when I was a Cook County public defender. And really, in private practice, when you're running around so much, you're thinking about the law and how to win the case and the facts, but really sitting down and understanding the client and getting to know them as a human being, that was something I was really able to challenge myself to do here at the Federal Defender's Office. And it became a whole new avenue for me, a whole new rewarding avenue of really understanding how my client, who was sitting usually on the other side of a glass, got to be sitting there. What happened to them? What's their story? And it had the benefit, of course, of making me a better lawyer in court and being able to advocate more strongly being able to advocate more strongly for the lowest possible sentence for them. Because once the judge understood the circumstances of this person's life, it was harder for them to give them the highest possible sentence. And I usually was successful in influencing the judge to give a lower sentence. But more importantly, I got to know. It made me a better person, because I got to know the clients better and deeper, and we developed bonds. I don't know if friendship is the word, but we definitely developed bonds where we could talk to each other honestly about um, both of our experiences in life. And this made me a better lawyer, and I really value that experience. So then when the job opened up, of course, I knew my predecessor pretty well because I had been coming to court. I asked Judge Gotch what he thought. And he's like, yeah, go for it. Why not? And so I put my hat in the ring. And basically, it was a process that involved a long application. And then the 40 applicants were interviewed, I think, by a committee. I think they interviewed all of us. So there were 40 people who wanted the job. We were interviewed by a committee that was made up of mostly lawyers, but a few community members who were also allowed to be on the committee and express their opinions and concerns about what the job entailed. And after those interviews, 5 candidates were selected, and those 5 names went to all the judges in the Northern District, including the senior judges. And we were interviewed by all the judges in one big room. And then there was a Zoom screen for, I think, 3 or 4 of the judges that didn't make it in person. So that was kind of an intimidating experience being interviewed by all the judges in the Northern District of Indiana. But it worked out for me, and I got the call, and I was made magistrate judge, which was thrilling and wonderful, and a perfect capstone on my career, which I'm proud of my career, and I'm also proud to have this position. Okay, that explains how I got the job. So, what does a U.S. magistrate judge do? What kind of judge are we? The magistrate judge system evolved from the United States commissioner system, which was instituted way back in 1793. So since 1793, which is shortly after the Constitution, there's always been some system underneath the district court judges of adjudicators who can help the district court manage its caseload and help resolve certain kinds of disputes. Over time, it became clear that the system needed to be modernized, and in 1968, Congress passed the Federal Magistrates Act and created the new position of United States Magistrate Judge, which we have today. So really, magistrate judges, when you think about it, haven't been around since the beginning in our current form, but there's always been some kind of judge who's helped the district court judges. The difference between the district court and the magistrate is that the magistrates are appointed. The district judge is nominated and or appointed by the United States President under Article 3 of the Constitution with the advice and consent of the Senate. And so the district court judge under Article 3 has lifetime tenure, and we serve 8-year terms that are renewable. And so we're federal judges, but we're not district court judges, and we have the somewhat limited jurisdiction because we're not under Article 3, but we can handle a lot of different kinds of cases, and I'm going to get into that right now. So the main work of the magistrate judge is to assist the operations of the federal district court. And our main work, of course, falls into 2 broad categories, criminal and civil. In civil matters, if someone files a lawsuit in the United States District Court, we monitor that lawsuit and we conduct pretrial case management, including enforcing and extending deadlines. We rule on all pretrial disputes, such as motions to compel discovery or motions to amend complaints. We also conduct settlement conferences, and we preside over trials where the parties have agreed to let the magistrate judge handle their case in the entirety. And that's a growing proportion of a growing percentage of our operations. I always like to tell our clerks that what we do may be the most important thing in the district court. Of course, we feel that way. But it's because when people file a lawsuit in federal court, the likely outcome is that it's going to be settled by the parties. So, and we're handling all the pretrial matters. Our job is to make sure that the case keeps going forward so the parties do ultimately resolve the case, hopefully themselves. And without our work, without our insistence that the case move forward, a lot of cases will just languish and never get decided. So most of the litigants never see the district court judge. Their only contact with the judge is the magistrate judge. And so keeping these cases moving forward is probably, I think, the most important part of our job, and maybe the most important thing that the district court does altogether. So that's what we do on the civil side. On the criminal side, it's limited because we're not Article 3 judges, so we cannot conduct jury trials in felony cases. But we are responsible for conducting initial appearances. These are things you've probably seen on TV, where people come to court and the judge reads the person, the defendant, their rights, right to silence, right to counsel. Also, they're informed of the charges and the possible penalties if there's a mandatory minimum or a maximum penalty. So they're advised of their rights, the penalties, and all that. And they're given some other additional information about their rights. And so the defendant knows that the case has begun. They get introduced to a lawyer, hopefully, and it's just the initial contact that a defendant has with the system. We also do arraignments, and that's also something I'm sure you're familiar with on TV, where people plead not guilty at the arraignment. No one ever pleads guilty at the arraignment, so it always makes me chuckle when I see the newspaper remarking that, oh, so and so who was just arrested on this case where the evidence is so strong against them, they plead not guilty. Well, of course, no self-respecting lawyer who's standing next to their client who's just been arrested is going to let them plead guilty. There's so much more to happen in the case. Even if the facts at that initial moment look bad, there's still, the lawyer thinks there's still a chance to win this case. I promise you, having been a criminal defense attorney for so many years. So you'll never plead not guilty at at the arraignment. And then things move on from there. Um, we also do detention hearings. So in federal court, once somebody's arrested, they have a right to a detention hearing if the government is trying to keep them in custody. And in the detention hearing, we have to decide whether to keep or release that person while their case is pending. If and the two main factors are whether we conclude that there's a risk to the community at large or someone specifically, or the person is a flight risk. Those are the two main factors we have to consider in whether we're going to detain someone or release them. So I would say that's one of the more challenging things that I have to decide. Having been a defense attorney for so long, I had to switch gears and put a new hat on, which includes protecting the community. And that really made me see things in a new light, I have to tell you. I remember the kinds of arguments I used to make as a defense lawyer and how passionately I felt about someone being released. But in this new job and reviewing the law as it applies to the magistrate judge, I have a different calculation going on in my head. And so that's been an interesting learning experience, like all my experiences. Maybe you're getting the picture here with me, but it's taught me a lot about what judges do, it's a different lawyering altogether, being a judge, I guess I would say. So we also handle federal misdemeanor cases. Misdemeanors often arrive on federal land, including tribal land. If there's an offense that the tribal court doesn't want to handle, and I'm not even sure how these decisions are made, the case will come to us, and then I can handle the whole thing, including doing a jury trial. If it's Class A misdemeanor, the defendant will have to consent to that, but they usually do. So that's an interesting aspect of what we do. So there's a lot of nuts and bolts in there about what we do. There's no overarching theme, I guess I'd say, especially on the criminal side, but it's a lot of different things that keeps us busy all the time. We're in court almost every day. We're on Zoom. We're doing settlement conferences. We're issuing orders and discovery cases. So it's a very, very busy operation, and we're happy to have it busy. That's part of why we took the job and looked for it, is to stay busy and to be challenged by it. It still calls upon all my skills as a lawyer and the things I learned and all the experience I've gotten over the years. Okay. So what is the rule? Am I at a half hour? Or do I have a few minutes left, do you think? Okay. So
Yeah,
what's
you
the
can,
rule?
yeah, a couple of minutes more. I'm sorry. I was trying to
Okay.
find unmute.
Yeah, so I'll just briefly tell you that the courts, what's the role of the federal courts in the judicial in the federal government, the federal system of government? The federal courts handle federal law cases, including cases that arise out of statute that have been passed by Congress, like civil rights cases, consumer rights, Disability Act matters, employment cases, things like that, things that affect the environment. There's so many different categories of federal law, it's impossible to list them all. But they have to be based on some statute or authority that Congress has passed, and to give people the right to bring a lawsuit. The district court also handles diversity cases that arise from state law where the parties are citizens of different states and the amount in dispute is more than 75,000. So say we have a couple cases that are actually just traffic accidents that happen in the area, but for one reason or another, one of the parties is not from Indiana. So that's called diversity jurisdiction. If it's a serious enough case and it's more the amount in controversy is more than $75,000, even though state law applies, the parties can file it here or it can be removed to federal court. And the courts also handle constitutional law matters, which is the issue that's been most in the news lately. These cases are mostly filed in Washington, D.C. or other big urban centers like New York or LA, I'd say. And they often involve the balance of power between the three branches of government, the legislature, that would be Congress, of course, the executive branch, which is the President of the United States, and the judiciary, which is us. But these cases, they tend to get appealed pretty quickly up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has traditionally been the ultimate decider in these kinds of cases that are dealing with the balance of power and authority between the three branches. It's really the essential component of the Constitution and what our democracy involves is how these three branches check each other and also how they operate. So that basically covers it for me. You could see that the United States Magistrate Judge job is really it's a really fascinating, interesting position. It's challenging, and I really am lucky and thankful that I at this time in my career get to help bring justice into the community and to try to challenge myself still to be the fairest judge that I possibly can be. So that would conclude my presentation. So if anybody has any questions, I'm sure there
Oh,
are a few.
do we have questions? There
Okay,
are a lot of
good.
questions. So I'm going to start with question number one from Elizabeth. How important are clerkships in being appointed to the bench and understanding the role of judge?
Well, I think my clerkship did help me get this job, and it is important in understanding the role of judge because you work behind the scenes with the judge and get a sense of what the court does on a daily basis. I know our clerks, they help us make decisions. They help run the courtroom. They help draft decisions and help me decide how disputes should be ruled upon. So it is an invaluable experience if you can get it.
Hmm, thank you. Question number two from her. How do you respond to people who suggest that it's immoral to defend guilty people, especially at a time when many people believe that simply labeling people criminals, quote, should strip them of civil liberties, rights, and due process?
That's a good question and one I often get as a former criminal defense attorney. I would say that the way I would answer that is that, well, the general principle is that everyone is entitled to a defense, and it's not up to the lawyer to decide if the client's guilty or innocent. As a defense lawyer, all you're concerned about really is how am I going to win the case? That's the major question. It's not, do I agree with this defendant or do I agree with what he's charged with? How can I win the case, whether or not he did it? And I would tell you that when two defense lawyers get together to talk about their cases, they never ask this question, did your client do it? Never. That never comes up. It's really, what did you do to try to win the case? What was your investigation? What did the judge say? What law is on your side? And that's how the system works because it's an adversary system. There's the prosecutors on the other side fighting as hard as they can to win their case against you. So somehow the judge who's in the middle or the jury has to make the right decision based on this struggle between the two sides. If one side decides that they think their client's guilty and doesn't do their job, then the system collapses and the client doesn't get a fair shake. And I would also say that in my job here, where I was fighting so hard to understand the client's um, life story and bring that to the judge, that the clients who saw that lawyers are fighting as hard as they can for them, even if they're found guilty, they walk away from the outcome more often than not feeling that justice was served, even if they're found guilty after a long battle. If a client feels that they've been found guilty and their lawyer just phoned it in, they'll always feel a sense of anger and frustration. And that's not good for anybody because eventually almost everybody's going to get back out into the community. And you want the person who's been punished to believe that the society and the community has been fair with them, and that gives them a sense of peace so they can re-enter the community and be productive. That's the hope. But if they always feel that the community had it in for them, didn't listen to their side of the story, or didn't give them due process or justice, then there'll always be this sense of anger, and that'll linger. That's not good.
And this is an aside, do you ever ask the client, your own client, if he's guilty?
No, never did.
Okay. It's
Never,
just,
never
I
came
always
up.
want,
So
okay.
the first time you meet your client, they're not going to tell you they're guilty. They're going to tell you that everything's going to come out about the story of how they got arrested and what happened and where,
Yeah.
what are we going to do now? They're in a state of panic. No matter how, even the death penalty cases where our mission wasn't to find the person not guilty, uh, we're taught in those cases to only focus on the death penalty. That client, and no matter, even though they've done allegedly or been charged with something terrible, they are scared and they need a lawyer or they need someone who's going to show them that they have someone on their side. I mean,
Okay.
many of your clients, their family, their neighbors, their friends, no one is on their side. They just need to see that someone is on their side. That's a really important part of what a criminal defense attorney does.
Question from Cynthia. How and when do judges render their opinions? And what is the process?
That's a great question. We do it as fast as we can, and sometimes it takes a long time. So the parties will raise an issue. The issue has to be briefed if it's going to be opposed. So there's an initial motion and memorandum in support, a response, and then a reply. And all those
Hmm?
submissions have deadlines, so that
Mm.
extends the time for the resolution, but we keep track of our deadlines. There are many different programs to help us keep track of when motions become ripe for decision, how long they've been sitting there. There are two main deadlines in the year that all judges face, one in the spring and one in the fall. And we're required to resolve as many of the cases on this one particular list. It's called the CJRA list as we can. And so we're always under pressure to get these things decided. And one of the things the magistrate judge can do is move things along a little faster sometimes than the district court judge, because of the criminal docket that the district court judge is required to address. We can address some of the civil issues on a more expedited basis, and that's what we try to do.
Okay, thank you. Question from Elizabeth again. You mentioned defending people being charged with capital offenses. Do judges have to personally support capital punishment to preside over trial carried a carrying a possible sentence of death?
That's a good question, and it's the magistrate judge is not involved in any capital litigation. But any judge is required to swear an oath that they'll follow the law. And if the law includes the death penalty, the judge is required to follow that regardless of their personal opinions. That pretty much goes for all areas of the law. The judge has to put aside his personal feelings and opinions and follow the law. And the law goes back a long time, hundreds of years sometimes, and the cases build on each other, or there's a statute involved. If we don't follow the law, say if I don't follow the law, I'm going to get appealed, and then the case will be reversed, and I'll be told to follow the law, and that's a waste of time for all the litigants. So as a lawyer and a judge, my job is to figure out what the law is as best as possible and rule consistently with what the law is. That keeps everything fair, ultimately.
Okay, thank you. Melanie, how do you get the job of doing naturalizations?
It's our favorite, every judge's favorite job. Um, we have to do, there are a number of naturalizations that come up throughout the year and we share them. And I'm lucky enough that as a magistrate judge, I get to participate in the rotating assignment of the naturalizations. I just got asked to cover for another magistrate in uh, Lafayette. So apparently they closed the federal courthouse down there, but they have a naturalization ceremony, and they do 100 people at that ceremony. And Purdue marching band comes, I guess, and it's a very exciting tradition. So I'm really looking forward to doing that.
Oh,
Yeah.
and you do it so well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, and that's by the way, that's one of our league's favorite, because that's one of the favorite things we like to do when we register voters is to go to the naturalizations and register new citizens.
I'm so glad that that's the case and you're there. You provide a very important service. And it's a day that everybody's happy. It's a positive day. There's no downside. So it's just a
It's
great thing for a
colorful.
judge. Yeah, it's
It's
hopeful.
lovely.
Exactly.
Cynthia, broad question, but what is one thing that you'd like to see changed about our judicial system? And also, what would you like the public to be better educated about our judicial system?
Well, that's interesting. I, my experience with the judicial system has not been sort of macro, it's been micro. The criticisms I've had relate to specific judges I've been in front of who I haven't agreed with. Now that I'm a judge, I feel like it seems like as a lawyer and as a judge, you get a sense and an understanding that there are two sides to every story, and that there's also in every dispute going to be someone who wins and someone who loses. It used to be more so that the loser would accept the outcome if they perceive the process to be fair. Now, with social media and the instant gratification world we're in, I think people only accept winning. And we need to, in order to have a peaceful society, we need to have winners and losers. They can still talk to each other and move forward. And as a lawyer mentor I had once, after I was grieving about losing a case, his comment was, "Counsel, call the next case." In other words, move on. There's always more. There's always another case. You're not going to win them all. You're not going to lose them all. So you just got to have a understanding that that's the way the world works. Now, if someone loses, they get so angry. It's almost as if it's the end of the world. It's not always the end of the world. We have to figure out a way to move forward as a community and talk to each other, even though we disagree.
Thank you. Elizabeth, I appreciate today's opportunity to learn more about the magistrate system. That's certainly something that few people know about. And then I had a question, but you already answered it about the naturalizations, how you get to preside over that and who. Are the budget cuts, Melanie's asking, are the budget cuts hurting you?
Well, we didn't, I don't know I actually don't know what happened in the budget with regard to the judiciary. We're somewhat separated from the executive branch and all those agencies that are getting cut because we're in the judiciary. But they asked for a lot more money than I'm sure we got. We could stand to use more money and more support, especially since the number of cases keep growing. I will say, though, as an aside, that the judge who is in a Seventh Circuit Court judge, Amy St. Eve, who made the budget presentation to Congress, is someone I've known for a long time because she started her career in Chicago as a U.S. attorney, and we had cases together. And then it just fell on me that I had her first civil trial. I had a civil rights case in front of her. And so she was sort of a fish out of water back then, which is hard to imagine now because she's such an excellent judge and experienced person now. I've always admired her. And so I was happy to see that she was up there in front of Congress arguing for more money for the judiciary.
Okay. Um, is there Melanie, is there a growing number of women judges? Number one, and how does the system work for women? And is it different from men?
I don't know how qualified I am to answer that question. I can tell you from experience that women make up at least half, if not more, of law students and new lawyers. And even since I've been practicing, I've seen more women in the courtroom. It's got to be close to 50-50, at least in Chicago. Um, then there are a lot more women judges. And personally, I think that's good. The judiciary needs to reflect the community. And the only way to do that is to make sure that everybody has an equal chance of getting one of these jobs. So the people who are coming before these judges understand that they're being heard. Whether they win or lose, people need, as I've said before, people need to feel that they're getting justice and a fair shake.
Okay. And she also then asked, what would you say to young person wanting to be a judge, male or female?
Yeah, so I wanted to be a judge. I ran for judge in Chicago and lost in a judicial sub-circuit. I didn't think before or after that it would actually happen. It was sort of like rolling the dice and hoping it comes up the number that you asked for. Um, but I did always take my job seriously, even though I was self-employed for a long time. I felt that what I was doing was important to the people I was representing. And I was always looking for more challenges, more sophisticated cases, a broader range of experiences, both on the civil and criminal side. And all of those experiences, I think, played into the fact that I was ultimately selected for this position. So I think it's a lifelong thing. The best judges, I think, are judges who have had a lot of experiences in court and are made judges toward the ends of their legal career, rather than new judges in the beginning who haven't really seen a lot, experienced a lot, or met a lot of different kinds of lawyers, because those are all challenges that you're going to face as a judge.
Okay, thank you. Now, Elizabeth has another question. This is outside, now this is a long question, okay?
Sure.
This is outside your current scope, but you mentioned class action lawsuits and naturalization ceremonies, so I'm curious about your thought on the future of birthright citizenship. More specifically, do you expect a class action lawsuit to be filed on behalf of the people whose birthright citizenship is challenged now that universal injunctions are not allowed by the US Supreme Court? Question. I'll just finish it. It seems like a class action suit or Administrative Procedures Act lawsuit following a Trump administration policy guidance memo is needed to create a national policy, because it would be odd for the 22 states who sued to have different citizenship definitions than the 28 states who did not sue.
I would say that's a very sophisticated question, and it
Whew.
sounds like the lawyer asked it actually. From my understanding, just from reading the newspaper, is that there has been a class action filed. I can tell you a little bit about class actions. In a class action, the lead plaintiffs are asking the court to let them represent a large group of people. There has to be some identity of common interest, and in order for the class action to be certified. So the first step is to filing the case. The next step is to go through a certification process for the class action, for the class. To get a class certified, there's some discovery, in other words, pretrial maneuvering that goes on, including depositions and interrogatories. And then a motion has to be filed certifying the class. So even though this lawsuit was filed maybe yesterday or the day before, I don't remember when I saw it, it's still going to take some time to wind its way through the system. With regard to birthright citizenship, the 14th Amendment does seem to me to state pretty clearly that if you're born in this country, you're a citizen. But the other side, I acknowledge, they're making an argument that it didn't intend to cover certain kinds of categories of people who were born here. That's really what the dispute is about. And no matter how it's decided by the district court judge, it's going to get up to the Supreme Court, and they're going to be the ones to ultimately decide it. So I think we will see the Supreme Court ultimately have to make a decision on that issue.
Okay, question number 5, Elizabeth. Do you do anything to try to calm people down when they're in your courtroom? Most people must feel very nervous when they're appearing in court.
I try to. I mean, that's been one of the things that I try to do in my career. I know people are nervous and scared in court. I used to tell my clients who were, when we were coming to court, I used to tell them that everybody's nervous in court. So, and the witnesses too, you're very nervous when you testify. I would say to them that I'm nervous, and the prosecutor's nervous, and the judge is nervous. And now I know for a fact the judge is nervous. Everybody's nervous in court. It's a time of public speaking, which is everyone's number one fear, as we're doing right now. But yeah, so I try to keep them calm. I just want to show a little empathy and kindness to the people and make them understand that we're not, as the judge, I'm not against them. I'm just here to make sure the case moves forward. So, especially in the criminal area.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to open it up. We have about 10 more minutes. I'm going to open it up and see if anybody has any verbal questions that they would like to ask at this time. How's that? And I want to ask one.
Sure.
I want, if everybody can unmute if you want. I have one, even clear up to the Supreme Court. I hope to assume that everybody's impartial and following the Constitution and following it, as opposed to having anything political involved. Is that true?
Well, it's a very large question.
Yes.
I can say that I believe that that's true for all the judges I know, that they are working as hard as they can to be fair, to follow the law. We're all trained lawyers, and to be fair to the people who come before them in court. So I do think judges come to the federal judges are screened, and by having to be uh, there has to be consent through Congress for their appointment. Ultimately, there's a huge screening, layers of uh, background checks and things like that. I think they're very, very qualified. Um, People who have achieved in law school, people who have achieved in their careers, and I think the Senate wants to make sure that they have a qualified judiciary.
Thank you. Does anybody else have do anyone else have oh, here Melanie says, is it hard to make these decisions that affect people's lives in enormous ways?
Yes, it is hard. But we don't do it just off the top of our heads. We're lawyers, as I said, and we do our best to, at least I do my best to follow the law. I have the help of two law clerks who are very talented, and they do research and try to uh, organize the facts in a way that's most understandable. And we try to follow the law mostly and do the right thing. So, as I said before, someone is hurt and someone is helped in every lawsuit. And that's just the fact of life in the courtroom. We just have to make the best decision we can. And hopefully everybody can move forward if they feel that they've gotten fair justice.
Chuck says, do you see AI playing a role in what has traditionally been a judge's responsibility?
I know that AI plays a role in the legal profession. I've been to presentations where the uh, presenter is telling us that the only lawyers that survive are going to be the ones to use AI because it's cheaper for the client. But there are problems because the AI hallucinates cases and comes up with arguments that don't make any sense in the law. So the lawyers are still needed to double check and make sure that things are accurate. It's one thing to have something written for you, but it's another thing to actually check it and take responsibility for it and make sure it's what you think it should be. If we get a submission and the cases aren't they don't exist, or someone's made an argument that has no basis in the law and then they lose, they could be subject to sanctions, as I'm sure you've read about in the newspaper. So yeah, AI is an issue. I think for sure it's going to keep getting more and more sophisticated, and we're going to see more and more of it. That's sort of an interest I have, is how the legal profession is going to change with AI, because undoubtedly it's going to. Now, your question was actually more specific, and I don't want to dodge it. How does AI affect the judges? There are some AI tools that uh, could be helpful to us, but there's also issues of confidentiality and privilege. So in order to use AI, it has to be taught data so it can organize it and send it back to you in a way that you think is useful. Well, the information that we have is confidential, and it belongs to the litigants. And we can't just send it out there. I'm thinking in particular of Social Security medical information. We can't really use AI to educate itself on someone's private medical information and ask it to write a Social Security opinion for us. I think it's a lazy shortcut. These Social Security decisions are challenging. It's a case where someone is obviously suffering. They've been denied Social Security benefits because of their disability, and it's up to us to make a human call of whether someone deserves it or not. And I do believe that requires human eyeballs on the decision and a human heart to make the decision. So yeah, AI is an issue. I don't know how other judges are handling it. Believe it or not, we don't get together that often as judges. And when you're in chambers, we're independent actors. We're supposed to use our best judgment and not rely too heavily on what other people are doing, because that's why we got picked, to use our own judgment here. So my judgment is that I'm not going to use AI to make important decisions. I'm not going to use AI to organize information, because I think that information becomes public once you put it into a database, and it shouldn't be, and people trust us with that information and it shouldn't get out. So that's where I stand right now. But I'm open to AI changing and getting better, and we'll see what kind of AI. There was, as you know, it was in the New York Times. Amazon's building a giant computer in the fields over there by New Carlisle. And so AI, who knows how that AI is going to affect our lives as we go forward. It's an interesting development. Who would have expected it at this point in 2025 that so much would change once again? So there we are. You're muted, Pam.
Those buildings are huge. We went over and drove around them. It's just huge over there in New Ireland. Elizabeth said, I thank our speaker for focusing on all parties' humanity rather than becoming cold and jaded, as some might, especially after practicing criminal defense in a major U.S. city. This shows great strength of character.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you and your comments. Yeah. Well, I've tried to remember
Go
what,
ahead.
why I went to law school and what that was all about way back when, and hold on to those ideals. So,
And Cynthia, and I think all of us want to thank you. It is 2 minutes till, so we're,
okay.
oh, there's one more. Wait a minute, wait a minute. Oh, thank you.
We're
We
just getting
all
thank yous.
thank
Yeah.
you so very much
Okay.
for your time, and I don't know if everybody knows, but Judge Frankel offered, he didn't wait till we asked him to do this. He said, if you ever want if you ever want me to come and speak to the League of Women Voters, I'm open to that. So thank you very much. And we were delighted that you asked us, because if you hadn't, we probably would have asked you at some point in
That's
time.
good. Good to
We have
know.
enjoyed you
Happy
at
to
your
come
the
back.
naturalizations. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. And thank you, everybody, for participating, for coming and spending your hour with us. And with
Thank you
that,
so
we
much.
will say, come back. I got to tell everybody that next month on Lunch with the League, second Friday, will be Cultivate. Will come and talk to us about what they're all about. And that's that.
Thank
And
you.
thank you very much. Have a lovely day, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.